recordings this time. Hopefully it doesn't bite us. Welcome to another fine episode of Command Control Power. This is our final recording of 2025. Good to see you guys. All right.
Good to see you too, man.
Yes. Good to be here.
Jerry, look out behind you, man.
Good to be
Watch
seen.
out.
Well, I put this picture up here because I was actually outside cleaning the gutters today because we had a little bit of a mild day in Connecticut, and it had been cold compared to where you're living, Joe, in Colorado. Of course, we have temperate conditions, but it was a little break in the weather today. So I decided, today was probably the last possible day I could get up on the extension ladder and do the gutters. I only have to do the first floor. I don't have to go up to the second floor because there's no gutters on the second floor. But because I was outside, I'm looking now with a nose that's probably redder than usual. So I've got the Rudolph background, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer with the bumble in the back. Because I got the shiny nose, so it's perfect.
Nice. Very fitting.
Funny.
Yeah.
Very fitting.
Yeah. Well, that's where that came from.
Yeah.
How about you, Sam? I know you're pretty fancy. Do you get somebody fancy to clean your gutters? You don't do that kind of menial work, do you?
I've been doing my gutters for years. Yeah, because I don't do the second floor gutters because that's like a little scary. Right. I got up on my roof a few years ago and I couldn't get back down because I was freaked out. I had to call my neighbor.
Couldn't get back down. Oh no.
My neighbor, I was like, "You got to hold this ladder. I'm freaking out." So I don't do that anymore. But
is your wife Jen? Is she indifferent to you being on an extension ladder? Like I do that all the time. Like I'm up on a ladder and my wife's like, "Whatever. I'm going to the store." And I'm like, "What if I fall and I get a collapsed lung? Who's gonna pick me up off the ground?"
A collapsed
lung.
Like that? That's specific.
That's typically what will happen to you. I mean, you could break your spine too, but collapsed lung is the first thing that goes south when you hit the deck like that hard.
Yeah,
that sounds pretty awful.
Depending on, I guess, where you hit, but that's probably a pretty good. I like how you've thought about the disaster planning on all this stuff. It's just like, what's the likelihood? It's like a 1% chance. It's got to.
Yeah,
it's good. This is how you advise your clients. You got to think through all the possible scenarios that concerns them. And
I like the way you're turning this around into tech.
See, that's what I'm here for.
What clients I have left. So, funny you bring that up. So, just about a week and a half ago, I had an attorney client who emailed me out of the blue and said, "We don't need you anymore. Please remove please stop billing me."
Wow.
And then I popped in because they were having a problem. They thought one of their computers were compromised. This tree service, Sam and I think both have a client that does tree service work. And he told me that they're being acquired. So, a much larger IT company and a much larger company will take over this business. And so it's like sayonara to MacWorks. So we're just doing terrific. We're doing some great year-end house cleaning.
Sayonara is one of those autocorrects for my last name. So it's that I feel like that should be my story.
So I feel like the Bumble back here. Like if you're watching this on YouTube.
Yeah,
how's that?
Nice impression. Nice.
You got the fangs and everything.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Sam, so I guess I hope it's like one of those that happens in threes, because Sam was talking about a lost client recently. Now Jerry, and I guess I'm a little concerned. I have my client that I talk about sometimes that it feels like I've lost them already because of how often we go through negotiations, and renegotiations. Yeah. So that may very well happen to the point where this time my negotiation tactic is I don't know, if we have to keep negotiating this, it's less and less motivation just to help you guys and work with you.
It's exhausting.
I kind of just said that outright because my point of contact, she's not the one negotiating. I mean, she's the one handling the negotiations, but it's not coming from her, So I'm just being frank, hey, the more we go through this, every couple months, let's get it right. And let's agree to not talk again about this for a year or something. To the point where I was taking a page out of some of the playbooks we've talked to. I think probably Tim Pearson show, it came up recently, and a few times it's come up. And Sam, you've mentioned this, building in the increase, because it's the number's going to go up. We have inflation, we have cost of living increases, build it in. So let's pre-negotiate this now. I'll negotiate now, and let's build in this increase for next year too, or for 2027 at this point. just to kind of, avoid that situation and not have to worry like they're going to bring this up all the time. And, but I mean, you didn't even
Yeah.
have the opportunity to negotiate this, Jerry. It sounds like it was very unilateral, just like, we're done.
The attorney?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's a tough
okay.
one.
They're big. I've said this before. They're big PIAs. PIAs.
PIAs?
PIA. Sounds weird.
Tune into the Patreon for the translation of that acronym. It's a special behind the scenes thing.
As you were telling your story, Joe, I was thinking, how about this turn of the phrase? You could tell them that you're tired of their reindeer games.
Mm-hmm.
You could say that. You could, for the holidays and this sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're breaking out all the holiday terms.
That's right. Yeah.
All the holiday metaphors. Yeah. So that's not good. And so, we're faced with rising costs. We've talked about this on most recent shows. Everybody out there probably listening is seeing it. The middleware that you use to manage your Macs, whatever it is, everybody's increasing their rates except us. It seems like.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel behind the times on that now, because like I kind of went through one like in 2023. And if you look, I asked Google's Gemini or something like, what is the cost of living increase? And I forget the range. I think I said 2020 versus 2022.
Because you're living in the past.
Yeah. For 2025 versus 2020. What did I say? 2025 versus 2020 is what I
said. 2020 versus 2022.
You can't type and talk.
I know, exactly. I'm like, especially right now, I'm dropping packets. Do you guys use that phrase? Like, I found this phrase like very useful. Like, I'm just dropping packets. I'm like a, oversaturated Ethernet network or something. But
that's funny.
So you exactly called it, Sam. It's like typing and talking at the same time. Like half of it's coming out of each output. It's like I'm typing like half the sentence I'm saying. It's a 25% increase between 2025 since 2020. Now, I mean, obviously, like COVID, whatever. But the way they calculate this is they say, it's based on, well, there's certain things. Of course, I got a different result this time I searched it, but the last time they were saying like specific metrics that they measure to, and it's things like groceries, which of course is represented by certain types of groceries and, housing and whatever else that goes into this. But 25% inflation in 5 years, like that's eye-watering.
Can you type, are you sure?
yeah, exactly. And then they're going to double check and it's going to be a different number. 25% is the number that I got like when I did this before. But
yeah, because I'm thinking COLA, right? Cost of living adjustments. I'm thinking like 3% per year. So that's at least 15%. So
no, but it's compounding though. It's 3% on top of the 3% that already accounted from last year. You know what I mean? So 3% compounding year over year is different from like, it's like, it's not 3 times 5 is 15%. It's like 3%. It's, I don't know. It's a factorial equation or something like that. It's basically like, it's probably, if it's 3% a year, it might be more like 18%. I'm just throwing a number out there, not 15. Mm-hmm. So you're already a little closer to the number. And it's some years were 5%, or 10, like for 2 years, it's probably 10% or something like that, over a 2-year span. So, but yeah, I mean that, like, okay, so I should be charging 25% more than I was charging in 2020. Right?
Yeah, I find it hard sometimes to charge the prices that I already charge. So like changing that.
I'm not even saying I'm gonna do that, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like as we've started to add additional services and our costs have gone up and our charges have gone up, it's so hard because if a vendor, like we just had this recently, a vendor that handles our email security to like, filter out spam and phishing and all this other stuff and identity protection, like they just went up, and I just literally renegotiated with some of my clients for new services. So their price already went up, and now they're like, hey, our prices are going up. I'm like, damn it. I just did this. I can't go back to my client and be like, sorry, Mr. Customer. Yeah. I have something else that's now a higher cost.
Right. And we absorb that. It is frustrating. Yeah. And then you absorb that for like a year until you can like think your clients will stomach another price increase, and then you're like behind again. Right. I mean, I had clients like this where the legacy clients are the ones I've been working with for 2 decades where, like, well, I can't raise them. I mean, they're like my favorite client or whatever, and they're like, so a few years of that, 5 years, now they're paying a rate that's 5+ years, like prior to the current one. And you're trying to actually increase the current one for everybody else. So now they're paying like in one case at one point in time, they were paying like, I think like 33% less, basically like a third less than everybody
Hmm.
else. And I finally just had to have a conversation like, look, I've been, this is I just was frank with them because in this case, they were also like a good, understanding, like friend client as well. But it's really tough to get out of that cycle because you're always negotiating like last
Yeah.
year's rates. This is the one with the client I just mentioned where, they keep negotiating. Like we just had this conversation. I just gave them some concessions like 2 months ago and they're like, hey, we're looking at next year. Can we negotiate? I'm like, we just like, we're not negotiating down from that number. Like we're negotiating from the real number now, like you're going to pay more, not less than sure, we can have this conversation, but like, it's going to go up, not down again. Like, so I had to lay that all out. And I was like, this number that I'm like negotiating with you on has been our rate for over 2 years now for everybody else. And so like that rate that's been in place for all this time is going to be your rate, like starting in 2027. I'm telling you now, at least like I have to stop the bleeding basically.
Yeah.
And then like probably 2028 will get you up to like the current rate, but it's kind of like, it still takes time, but you eventually have to just like force yourself through this process. But that's a perfect example, Sam, where it's like, you just did this and then, now you have a vendor that's coming back to you. Yeah.
But in the meantime, too, it's just erosion of your bottom line.
Yes.
I mean, I've mentioned this on the show before. I've looked year over year, and you think like, well, we did a little bit better than last year, but we lost client A, we lost client B, but we got this other client, which kind of takes up some of the slack. But I look at the numbers, and it's just keeping your head above water from year to year.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it's this is my own myopic view, and there's other people who are listening who may have had terrific years, and that's terrific, and you should celebrate that. But I don't know. I mean, I've mentioned this before. It's just the challenge of new work, getting new work in, and we've discussed it on a recent show. So I don't want to rehash old things that we've talked about, but always a challenge, always a moving target. People ask me when I go to see a client or I talk to them on the phone, they're like, how's business? And you always want to say, you don't want to say, oh, business is really slow or bad, because it gives the impression that you're a loser, right? Everybody wants to be with a winner, right? So you have to go, oh, it's great. It's always a challenge. Technology is always changing. That's my stock answer. But
no, and you also can't say business is booming. I can't even keep up, because then they're not going to refer you out. You
have
can't
to be very
oversell it either. Yeah. It's like, it's fine.
That's what I go with.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's your business, Sam? And also like, this is more what we talk about on Patreon, obviously, for all the people listening later on the public show. We share some more numbers, and I'm so tempted to tell you some things, Jerry, that agree entirely with your contention there for, analyzing my past like 15 years. I was like, man, I really like I started off great in like year 1 or 2 in that time frame. I was like, that was good money for me then. And then like, it didn't change for like 11 years, and like, I lost money a couple of years. Like, I will share that publicly, like it, hiring an office and all this stuff. And like, finally, like, I feel like, and I've shared this recently, but like, I paid all that cost up front to like grow the company, essentially, to be able to like accommodate more clients. And now we have more efficiency, and we can serve those clients with less, fewer people, and like less overhead and all this stuff. So now I'm finally profiting. Like, that's cool. I'm very happy about that. I'm proud of that. But if I look at those numbers, I'm like, man, like, that was a long slog through the mud for a lot of time, where there's not much to show for it until now, like until like the last year, basically. So anyway, to you, Sam, like, how's your
No, I was going to add to that. I mean, it's nice to see that positivity after all that. But like you said, it's kind of like you invested in being able to take on a client that maybe you couldn't have if you were a slimmer staff, or didn't have the space to like have a bench. And then over the years those needs change, but you get to keep those clients.
Yep.
And that's the benefit there. But yeah, I mean, to what you guys were talking about, it's been a lot of that, especially the last half of the year with me, you know, with a couple losses that we had for one reason or another. And along the way, I was like adding services to some clients to like, I'm like, oh, cool. We made a few $100s extra here. We made a few $100s extra there. I'm talking per month, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And then you lose a client. And it's like, well, hell, like all that, like those little incremental changes just boom, just drop right out.
Yep.
And it's so infuriating. Like you think you're seeing these nice bumps, and then it just knocks you right back down with one lost.
Yeah.
And so so I've been really frustrated about that lately as well. And we just actually got a 2-person client, which I was like over the moon about. I was like, nice, 2 people, you know, like
that's solid. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like super excited and they wanted to move fast. So that was good. But yeah, it's the little wins at these points, you know, that you have. And I think there's so much uncertainty, obviously, that everyone's a little like, what should I do? And that's where we're seeing that happen with our clients and potential new clients that just kind of somewhat disappear sometimes instead of proceeding.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I've had equal numbers. Like I've had some good interest lately from like incoming clients, you know, and like just as many as sign up for either, you know, in most cases it's just like a one-off kind of project or whatever, and we'll kind of play ball to prove our value and then maybe sign them or whatever. I've had equal numbers, you know, spin the gears. And you guys, Jerry joked about how, you know, I've been on the phone for like an hour and a half, and Jerry's like, oh, is that just your standard sales process? You know? It's like, yeah, it's exactly like I spent, you know, 45 minutes with one client, you know, like Apple. I have to praise Apple because they've sent me a bunch of really quality, like high-end residential clients, a bunch being like 3 in the last, you know, but that's solid. Like in the last 2 months or whatever, that's very solid. But I don't want to overstate it. You know, it's like 3 is a bunch, but also one of them who didn't move forward with us said, well, you know, the guy at the Apple store said, just buy the smallest Mac mini storage that we make and just put everything on external drives. Like definitively,
that's a good plan. Yeah, that's
and I'm
great.
like, I completely like, I'm
solid
not afraid
advice.
to say, like, yeah, totally disagree with that, you know, whatever. And so I spent the time to explain, I did exactly for the people watching, you know, it's like what Jerry just did. Like you want to, like, I'm glad I'm not on video at the time because I'm just like storming around my room, like, you know, like, how do I respond to this, you know? And so, you know, you take the time to explain like, well, this is why I don't recommend that. Let's assess, you know, she's like, I've got these 8 drives, you know, and all my photos are on all of these drives. You can just imagine the scenario. I'm like, how much time is this going to take to review this and get her in a good place? And, you know, photographer, but mostly retired, but whatever. So the time I spend the time. And again, this is the joke of the thing, is that I might spend 45 minutes to just have the conversation. And that's like, my sales process, it was probably 30 minutes with her. And ultimately she, you know, kind of like took the advice under advisement and like maybe went back to Apple. So I followed up after a week and sent a quick little like, you know, here, you know, how did it go? And she was very appreciative. Like, thank you so much for following up. That's so rare these days. You know, here's how I decided to proceed. I took your advice to heart. I decided to get the bigger storage in the Mac Mini. I'm going to start with just importing, you know, migrating from the Mac. And then all my stuff is like all these drives. That's fine. It's been fine. It's mostly stuff I don't need. So, you know, you can spin your gears like that and it just doesn't turn into anything. And that's, again, like half of the calls are 30 minutes on average to just find out it's not a good fit. Maybe she'll call me in a year. I don't know. But yeah, you guys know how it is.
I do.
I don't know if you're comfortable talking about this, Joe. You were recently discussing with me off mic a client that approached you and wanted to go off iCloud. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, that was another interesting one. So just to speak generally about it, you know, the request was like, I want to get all my stuff out of the cloud. You know, specifically photos and messages. And pointing up like the cloud, I don't want it up there anymore. I want it down here, you know, down, point down. Okay. So and I'm just like, okay, like I understand that, you know. So you know, can you say more about your, like what your objective is here? Yeah, my objective is I want to get it out of the cloud. I'm like, fair enough, you know, like it's like, this is starting to seem a little combative here, but like, let me, you know, what I'm getting at is I like to try to understand like, why do you want to get out of the cloud? Like, what's the reason? What are you kind of aiming for? well, I just don't want my photos in the cloud. And there weren't really more reasons than that. And so, okay, like that's technically plausible and feasible. Um, and so I felt like I was having this kind of conversation where it sounded like I'm interrogating, like, it was borderline on that to the point where she was saying like, this is a strange conversation. I feel
Oh,
like I'm selling the work to you. Like I'm selling to you. Like you're the service provider. Like how am I trying to sell this project to you? Like,
yeah.
and I said, let me, I'm gonna sort of like take a beat here. Like
And
I
talk to
was
your
all but
mentor, Jerry,
declining. I talked to Jerry, yeah, and
his
I said,
mentor.
let me ultimately like let me sleep on it. Like let's talk tomorrow.
Okay,
So we
so
talked it over. Yeah, go ahead,
let
Jerry.
me
Go ahead.
interject. Let me interject. So to add some clarity, um, this was an interesting situation. So I just
Yeah,
happened to be talking to Joe, Sam. So it's one of our
Yeah, on your
secret phone
secret
calls.
squirrel show. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm used
And
to it by now.
and I thought about it for a moment because all of us here and most of the people listening, 99.9% of the people listening to this would say like our knee-jerk reaction is like, no, that's like
yeah,
you're going down the wrong road. This is not what you want to do. You need to,
that was me.
trust the force, Luke. And
Yeah,
and then but Joe and I were kicking it around. I said, and the person that you mentioned to you as an aside that this person was not price sensitive, which which is great,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
So
mean,
I said to Joe,
that's a spectrum, but yeah, I think that she was like, whatever the cost is, I just want to get this done. It was like that kind of thing, not like the sky's
Okay.
the
right,
limit, but like whatever within reason. Yeah.
right. And we're going into Patreon territory, so I'm
Yeah,
trying to like
I want to
hold,
keep it away from there, please.
yeah, but
Careful with
I
Jerry. You
yeah,
never know what he's gonna say.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah,
gonna say, I said to Joe, I said, well, wait a minute. If this potential customer that's willing to pay you,
yeah,
we should have some sort of a recipe that we don't recommend. You know,
yeah,
this is like it's going to a doctor. How about this analogy? And the doctor says, well, we've got to run these tests, and the person is saying, like, no, 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 I want alternative medicine. I want to go see an acupuncturist. I've got back problems. And the
yeah.
doctors they're like, no, 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 you have to see a therapist. And no, no, I want to do acupuncture. Can you oversee this? Can you engineer this for me and, make a referral or do the work yourself? Or so I don't know. I thought
Well,
like
you had a good question, and this is what got through to me when we were talking this over. It was late at night, and on your side, especially you
late, very
said,
late, past your bedtime, Sam. That's why
yeah,
you weren't
Oh,
that's right.
sure.
looped
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
You were
So
sleeping. So
Jerry said to me, I think you hesitated at first to say it, but you were like, well, like we should be able to do this. And I'm like, you know what? You're absolutely right. Like we
yeah,
should be able to accommodate a request like this. Like
Mm.
I ought to be able to say to a client, yes, if you want to keep your stuff out of the cloud, like that's absolutely possible. The thing is, it's technically possible. Of course it is. And it's feasible, for people if they're willing to take the responsibility. It's just not advisable. Like we don't
right.
recommend this for good reason. I mean, look at the days before the cloud, before iCloud photos specifically or iCloud backup. You have to plug your phone into your Mac. Clients would go weeks without doing that, months in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not backed up. Your stuff, whatever's happening on here, your messages are only on here. They're only on there. You're going to lose everything, that's newer than 1 month ago or whatever at any given point in time. Same thing, photos, messages, same deal. Then you had the interim, photo. Oh man, I can almost think of the name of it. It was like Photo Stream, maybe was like the feature before iCloud Photos, and it would be
Yeah.
like your photos could make it their way to your Mac in the iPhoto app, I think at the time, or maybe Photos app. And so cool, there were ways to like mostly, but it's not quite in sync. And then the early days of messages, there's no iCloud messages, messages in iCloud. There's just like, hopefully your stuff is all on or it gets turned on later, and like the messages are going to fly from the sender to you as the recipient, and eventually they're all going to look mostly the same. Oh, but I'm missing this message. Yeah, I don't know. It's nothing I can do about it. You're missing a message over here. Your Mac was offline at the time for a week. And I think the architecture of iMessage was like the sender sends the message, your device says, I got it, and maybe Apple says there's 3 devices to deliver it to, and there's only 2 that received it, and the sender's device tries to resend, or I don't know if Apple's caching it or something, or it goes device to device. But before iCloud messages, it was like a little bit haphazard like that. And now, okay, so, iCloud messages in iCloud means it's going to distribute evenly across all the devices, and you can sync deletions. Like, these are the things that people want. So that's convenient. That's what people expect, right? But they're just like, I just don't want it in the cloud. Well, it's got to be in some kind of data center. So if you want the convenience, you have to accept that there's an intermediary, in this case, Apple, running a data center, and they call it iCloud, and it's going to be in that cloud, right? So it's the balance between, and I had this conversation with a different client, between like, what's your risk tolerance for security and privacy, and what's your risk tolerance for data loss? Like, and you've got to balance that. And so, like, if you want to be as sure as possible that it's your least chances likely that you're going to lose data or not have access to the data that you want, or that kind of thing, then use cloud syncing, use cloud backup. And then if you also are super conscious about privacy, then add a private encryption key to Backblaze for your cloud backup, so that Backblaze can't get your data. No one can get your data unless they have this secret key that you're going to keep really carefully in a safety deposit box in the bank, printed out, or maybe in your password manager. How secure is that? Okay, so you have this conversation. If you turn on advanced data protection in iCloud, that's essentially, encryption at rest. So, well, why isn't that turned on by default? Like, you mean Apple can get my messages out of the backup, out of iCloud backup, or you mean Apple can get my photos? Well, yeah, they technically can, and that's architected that way so that they don't have, a line of people crying and screaming at the Apple store who lost their data, because people will lose their device and forget their password. And so it's, Apple tips it by default in the favor of data integrity and protecting against data loss and so on. And they're not going to say that that's at the expense of privacy, but technically there's a nuance to it that, yeah, it's a little bit at the expense of your privacy. If you want to make sure you're totally private in the cloud and in all realms and everything still syncs securely and all that, then you simply use iCloud and turn on advanced data protection and turn off access data from the web, and you're in pretty good shape. So that's the diatribe I would have liked to share with this particular client, and I got partway into it. But it's hard to have that conversation when they've already thought it through. This client was intelligent, thoughtful, like had an idea, like a mental model of how this stuff works, and had already thought it through and decided that she wants me to click a few buttons for her and take everything out of the cloud. She didn't want to come to me for advice about whether to do this or how to achieve the goal of, I want to feel like my stuff is private and that no one can get it. So that's my assessment of this kind of situation. And fine, if you've had that conversation and you're really sure about it, then like Jerry said, like, we should be able to do that for somebody. But it brings up a lot of particulars.
Sam, where do you weigh in on this?
Well, first off, I have to say that we're seeing some good chatter in the conversations here about, yeah, I mean, you're posting one of them from Ben Morales, but like essentially a couple of people talking about the security of going off cloud and being local only. And I think Stefan in the chat also mentioned, medical devices. There are good reasons to be off the cloud. I
Could
think
you read these out loud? Because most of our listeners listen, they don't watch.
You want to read them, Sam?
Yeah, sure. So Ben Morales said, I would be so happy to get your anti-cloud customers over to something that respects privacy and data sovereignty.
Yeah, that's why Ben's here. He's here to poach our clients live, as we record our show.
But I mean, Ben and Stefan, like, it would be interesting to have people like that have an open discussion about it, because there are some important topics to get into. It's not just cut or, black and white. Right. In certain situations, your client sounded like they were very informed, and that's all well and good, but people are informed to a point. Like, they don't necessarily know the technical aspects of things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's also where we come into play there. So I think Jerry asked me like what my opinion is. It really is dependent on situation. Like, is this a business? Is this a personal client? Do they have validity to not have that data out there? Or is it just like, I don't want Apple to see my photos?
Why would that make a difference? Just out of curiosity, like, and I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but why would that be for you to decide? Like,
what are you talking about? Which?
Well, whether it was personal or business, like if the person had, let's say, casual boutique boudoir photographs that they wanted to have on their computer, but didn't want to share them in the cloud, versus a business not wanting to do that. How do you make that? I mean, not how do you make that distinction, but why would it be good for one and not for the other?
No. It's not like if you're a business, it's X. If you're personal, it's X, it's Y. It's just
Okay.
the situational positions. Like, what business are you in? Does it require security that should be off the cloud? What your personal reasons are just as valid if they're personal,
Yeah.
but they're all different situations, is what I'm saying. It's not just like if you're a business, yes. If you're a personal, no. It's just the
Yeah,
situational.
this is a great topic. Just to interject, I think when I talked to Joe during our secret conversation that Sam wasn't a part of, I just thought I would mention
Please
that.
don't overshare, but yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
Oh boy.
Joe had mentioned that there wasn't you thought
There
there
wasn't
might
a
be a
reason.
reason, but there wasn't
was
a reason
no
shared with you. They
there
were
was no
just
given
simply
reason,
yeah,
which
they
makes
were
it hard for
simply
me to
asking
advise.
you, could you do this as a technical professional?
Right.
And then yeah.
Yeah, she even asked me, would you? So, you know, she's like, you know, I guess I just want to ask you, like, can you do it? Well, actually, not can you do it? Will you do it? You know, because she like knew that I was already saying, yeah, it's technically possible, but will you? You know, and I don't know. I'm at it, and she's like, "Are you just busy right now?" I mean, it was kind of like she was really then interrogating me, and I said, "You know, we are busy right now, but I don't think that I would give you a different answer if it's a really slow time. Like, you know, well, yeah, now I'll play ball. Like, sure, I'll do anything you want, even if I don't advise. You know, I have standards, right? So I want to come up with a solution that I can stand behind." And I think it's important to get into the specifics of it. And she said, well, you know, if you're worried that like I'm going to come and haunt you later, you know, then like you don't have to worry. And I said, no, it's not like that. Feel like, you know, I'd have to carry a burden of responsibility because like obviously we've had this conversation where you understand that it's not my, you know, normal recommendation. And I certainly wasn't my idea to do this. So I don't feel like you're later going to blame me for something. It's just that I want you to be happy over the long term. And I don't want to create something that's going to end up not being the right solution. So that, and again, this is why I wanted to then go back to like, so what's your reasoning? Let's have that conversation. And she signaled a little bit about like, well, you know, what if so one of my concerns was, as I mentioned earlier, okay, now you have to plug your phone in to sync your photos. Okay, maybe she could do that. Well, you know, you're responsible for backing up your phone to your Mac. Do you have enough space? You're responsible for backing up your Mac to something that's not cloud-based. You've got to remember to plug it in. I mean, there's all these questions, right? So she addressed one of them, which was, well, what if I just get all my current photos out of iCloud and then I start over with an empty library and I use it going forward, but now I know like that this is going through the cloud, you know, and I know that AI is in everything. So, okay, there's a little signal. It's an AI kind of, you know, a version or just like a kind of slight fear of AI or whatever, or just, you know, concern. Very valid. And I said, well, you know, here's where we can have a conversation about, you know, your concerns and my advice. For example, like you can be assured that Apple's AI models in the scope of your photos run locally on your device. That's one of the features. And now I feel like I'm an Apple apologist.
Apple's AI,
right? They don't even work in the first place.
It doesn't work at all.
Right.
So you're all set there.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about Apple AI. That's the last thing you should worry about. It's you know, it's Apple idiocy. But yeah, so but you know, if your concern is like, I don't want AI inside my photos in the cloud, well, no, it's just running on your device for your benefit. So, you know, you do a search for a dog. Well, how does it know that's a dog? Well, because it ran an AI model offline on your Mac inside your computer to analyze it locally. And so you know, and again, here I sound like an Apple apologist, and I sound like, you know, I'm just, you know, a fanboy or whatever. But like, this is true. Like Apple has privacy as one of the value adds. It's like a core tenet of their offering. And okay, cool. Anybody could say that, but Apple has had that for a long time. They have a huge brand, and they stand to lose a lot if they, you know, break that promise, basically. It doesn't mean they won't ever do it. It doesn't mean like, you know, whatever, but that means something. It's different than Google's approach, let's say. So anyway, that's one aspect of it. And then the other aspect is like, you're concerned about privacy. I mean, Apple's looking, you know, somebody at Apple has access to my photos. That's another concern. Or that Apple could be compelled to disclose your private information, you know, without you. So like you know, they could do that technically. I understand it to be unless you have advanced data protection turned on. Now, Stefano Oberly in the chat also mentions enable lockdown mode. So here's what Apple says about lockdown mode. Turn on this extreme protection if you believe you're being targeted in a cyber attack. course, everybody already thinks they're being targeted in a cyber attack anyway, so it's not a good prerequisite. But apps, websites, and feature functionality will be limited, and some experiences may be completely unavailable. And then you can learn more. So, for example, like you won't see previews when somebody sends you like a photo through, through Messages app, right? It uses the whatever. It shows the placeholder, and you have to like go and open it. So you can't have these attacks that have been used in the past, like a malformed, JPEG or whatever, that then actually, uses a memory overflow to like, run some arbitrary code on your device or whatever. So lockdown mode like stops that, for example. That's a little different. I think that's like more for that, just as Apple says, like to, limit the damage or the exposure risk there. And when you're undergoing that kind of attack, compare that with on your Apple account settings, turning on in iCloud advanced data protection. Advanced data protection, this is what they say about that. iCloud encrypts your data to keep it secure. Advanced data protection uses end-to-end encryption to ensure that the iCloud data types listed here can only be decrypted on your trusted devices, protecting your information even in the case of a data breach in the cloud. They don't mention encryption at rest, but I think that's kind of a part of it, is that the point is like it's sitting on Apple's servers, and without that private encryption key, which is a combination of a trusted device and your password for iCloud, no one can get this data, including Apple. It says, because Apple does not have the keys required to recover your data, only your account recovery methods can help you get your data back if you lose access. And again, I explain this to clients like, well, why wouldn't Apple just make everything secure from the start? Well, because they can't help you. If you lose your device or your device is stolen and you just forget your passcode, like your password, you're right. That would be the risk. Do I have that right, Mr. Apple? Maybe
Oh, here we go.
Sam, live here.
If you enable advanced data protection and they don't have their passcode, right? Yeah, I think that's where you run the risk, which is why it's not on by default.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Stefan clarified that's what he meant actually was advanced data protection. Easy mistake to make. They list the device types here. Device backup. What? Otherwise your device backup is not encrypted? Well, yeah. I mean, you lose your device, you need to restore from iCloud. No problem, Grandma. Like, what's your password for iCloud? What? I don't know what my password is. Can I reset it? Well, sorry. Yeah, I don't have an iCloud account. Just make me a new one. Yeah. Right. So, but that's a very real scenario. Somebody has we talk about our Nana clients. It could be, grandpa or it could be, it could be anybody. It could be a 20-year-old kid because, they're not any more savvy than any generation, let's say, about this stuff, right? You walk into the store and you say, my phone was stolen. I need a new one. I didn't have iCloud. I didn't have Apple Care Plus. I need to pay full price, right? Okay. So fine, I can do that. And I can prove my identity with AT&T, right? And I get, reactivate the same phone number. Great. It's a hassle, but you can go through it. Okay, only one thing left to do, sign into iCloud. Well, we can reset your sign in, but we can't get access to your data. That's fine. I could just restore from the backup. Nope. You can't restore your iCloud backup if you don't have your one of your trusted devices or, and your password for iCloud. So I forget if it's a combination or one or the other essentially, but it's like you could be very easily in a scenario where you have no idea what your password is. Your password was on your phone, which has been stolen, right? And you can't get your passwords listed unless you have another device where that's already authenticated with iCloud. So, I mean, having this conversation with a client, they're just like, their head is spinning, even if you give them this scenario, it's still tough, I think, for them to process what that really means.
Right. And I'm sorry, Sam, I just want to interject. We deal with these concepts every day. So as Joe's sitting here, you're nodding, I'm nodding, Sam, and we understand what he's saying. Imagine getting that call of the person who wants to just strip everything off of iCloud. And then you're into a security consultation and you're trying to vet the client. So in one way you should have, woulda, shoulda, coulda, right?
Yeah.
But there's got to be some time where you're in the conversation and you have to put on the brakes, take a deep breath and say, yes, we can do this or we can't do this, but it's really important for you to have a security conversation with a professional, not someone at a cocktail party who told you, guess what? I had iCloud and I had these, images of me, and somebody got them through AI, and all of a sudden I'm on the internet on some adult website. Well,
this happened to celebrities like 5 years ago, right? There was like this wave of whatever we called, there was like some name gate, something for it.
Yeah, probably.
And CloudGate, iCloud Gate.
Right. I think it was longer than that. It was probably
maybe it was 10 years,
7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And these pictures of famous people were widely distributed on BitTorrent sites. Mm-hmm. But, it's always so challenging to, we want the work, we want to make some money, we want to advise people, but we're faced with these challenges sometimes, even to sort of like get a starting point with them that you feel like you have an understanding with them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm stating the obvious, I guess.
Yeah, but that was the difficulty in this case, was that her mind was made up. Like, she wants to get out of the cloud, and she was kind of like, what's so hard about this? Like, are you serious? Like, you can't just take me out of the cloud? This is crazy. What a crazy world we live in. It was like that kind of attitude,
Mm-hmm.
like.
Yeah, I think it's also just their threshold for change and difficulty in making these modifications. Like, again, just going back to the chat and what I'm reading from some of the participants out there, and thanks for throwing that out there, Joe. So Ben Morales again. Yeah, sounds like you're having a good security tabletop discussion. Good to do those at least once per year. There are a lot of reasons to get off public cloud. And he also goes on to talk about self-hosting and how that doesn't have to be like a poor experience for the customer. And I would agree. It's just that there's a threshold for you might have the expertise, let's say, in the product to go that way, but how much does the customer, how much can they take to make this change and make these modifications? Maybe it's not bad, but I'm just saying, like, there is a pain point there that they have to be aware of.
Stefan recommended a Synology, that can allow you to back up to the Synology, sync through the Synology without a cloud. Sure, I agree. I mean, so instead of using iCloud Drive or Dropbox or whatever, OneDrive, you can just use Synology Drive. And, it's going to go from your Mac right on the desk over here to your Mac in the other house you own, and they're going to sync to this through this Synology that's sitting over here. By the way, did you guys know that when you use Quick Connect, everything flows through a Synology data center? So cool. Like, if you're using Quick Connect for that, it's all going through the cloud. It's,
Right.
You would have to.
You have to open ports otherwise. Yeah.
Well, they would have to get a static IP to be truly successful.
You can actually. This is the subtle thing I learned. You can actually use Quick Connect for the discovery. But if you open the ports on your router, like point the port forward to your Synology, Quick Connect will like kind of find, it like helps you find each other or whatever, or access from the web or whatever, like from a remote location. But then if you see that address change to like whatever .direct.us whatever the address is, but it has the word direct in it, that means the ports are open and you can get right into it. So it doesn't flow through Synology's cloud. So this is the interesting thing too, is have you ever noticed that Synology Drive share sync is pretty freaking slow? Like, normally, like, let's say you have this is a digression, but you have an offsite server and you have the main server, and you want to keep the offsite server as like a backup, whatever. So it just stays up to date. Generally, it's fine. You don't really notice any delay. But if it's offline for like 5 months, because there's a renovation happening, as happened with one of my clients recently, you turn it back on and now it's syncing, 5 or 6 months worth of changes. It's like syncing at kilobytes per second. Why? Upload speed is great on both ends because it's flowing through Synology's data center. Why is their data center so slow? Because they're paying for bandwidth, and they're not going to give you like free, terabyte wide channels to communicate on. They're paying for that. They sold you a Synology once 5 or 10 years ago, and now you're still using this service for free because it's like a checkbox. You just build it in. There's no ongoing fee, so they throttle your speeds through the data center. I found that very interesting, but it also indicates that it's actually going through the data center, which makes sense. I just never really like mapped that out in my head, that they're paying for bandwidth too, and they're not charging for it. So anyway, yes, you can do a Synology, and yes, you can find a way to make it secure. That you have to open ports. What if their password sucks? Okay, you can enforce passwords. You can enforce two-factor. Fine, you can like it's a moving target, and they need to also like think about that and be
It
aware of
requires,
that. And that's
it requires care and feeding and security audits. So now you're engaged for a longer
That's
period
right.
of time with this person. It's just not
Yep.
a matter of me plugging in this thing and turning a few dials and setting you up on your phone and your Mac, and all of a sudden you're good to go.
Yeah. Well, that's what came up in this case. So just getting back to like the practicalities of fine, we can sync with iCloud, for new stuff, but the previous stuff is going to be in an offline library. No problem. Like, the Mac supports it. Photos app can open any number of libraries, and you just double click and okay, you want to switch to that one? Sure. One of them is a system photo library syncing with iCloud. The other one is going to be the offline library for everything up until now. I gave her a couple off the top of my head considerations. Okay, fast forward 5 years, you've got your library of all your recent stuff. Now you want to do like holidays over the years, well, now you're pulling from two different libraries, you're exporting, it's a little more cumbersome. All the birthdays, same thing, whatever. Okay, so that's fine, you can deal with that. Well, the warranty, I took a photo of the warranty card for my dishwasher. It was around 2025. Was that late 2025 or early 2026 or early 2025? Okay, well, fine. You just check both libraries. Lots of little details. One more example is you walk into the Apple store and you get service one day. Apple helpfully says, oh, well, you have iCloud photos turned on, but it's not on in the settings here. Oh, I'm going to see you just forgot to check the box in the library. Oh, because it's not your system photo. Okay, I'll click the box. Use a system photo library, turn on iCloud photos. Now all your stuff is syncing to the cloud, just like you want, right? No, it turns out, now we have to undo that and split the library into two parts again and figure out.
They just screwed the pooch.
Yeah. And it's like one, well-meaning checkbox, right? I mean, so, and also like she has to remember that, oh, I thought we were using iCloud photos. Why isn't it turned on here? Well, she has to remember who remembers this stuff. I don't have I have space in my brain for this. This is what I do. It's my job to remember it. But clients don't remember the subtlety of when I go to the Apple store, I have to remember to tell them I use two different photo libraries and one is offline and don't turn on iCloud photos there. After you do a migration and it asks you, do you want to do this? No, I don't want to do that. Remember that you want to. So it's too much subtlety. It's too many little like things to remember.
And what happened with that when you provided that information, or you didn't?
I didn't. That last detail about if you go to the Apple store for support, just remember XYZ.
That's compelling.
I didn't clarify that. I know. I think I talked to Julian after the fact because I thought, well, he can go and work with his client. It needs to be in person. Let me see if he's up for it. So we had this whole conversation about it. And he brought up that was his example. Well, you go to the Apple store for support. You got to remember to tell him, keep in mind, I don't do it the usual way that 99.9% of other customers in the store do. I have this special setup. To her point, this client on the phone, this is crazy. Like, I can't just not use the cloud. You're telling me like this is compulsory practically? No, but literally everyone else who walks into the Apple store will have a cloud first approach to this. Apple will just get in the habit of clicking that box every single time, and most people will be thrilled about it. You will not have a fun day if they click that box for you. So, how do you have to, and that's just me thinking, that's me brainstorming with colleagues, the possibilities. Like I could be overlooking something.
Right. Just off the cuff, what you came up with. Yeah.
Right. So
just for the listeners at home, Julian is Joe's employee. One of Joe's employees.
Yeah. Yep.
Subcontractor.
All right. Yeah. All right. It's nuanced. We're splitting hairs here. But
he's on my team. You can say.
I don't know about that. Splitting hairs. There's a difference.
There's a big difference. Yeah, a lot of employers use a subcontracting game, and they really.
Are you guys still going to move forward with this project?
Yeah, so we left off that we would move forward.
Yes.
I agreed to it after this conversation. Yeah, I said, Jerry convinced me. So part of my concern was a lot of times when clients have a vague notion of not wanting to do X, Y, or Z, it's because of again, vague concern over privacy, which can border on paranoia. This client didn't sound paranoid, but it was like a question of, is there a red flag here where this is going to go incorrectly or go poorly and we'll all regret it, right? That's what you're trying to anticipate. And it's not to say like anytime somebody says, I don't want to be in the cloud, I think they're paranoid. That's really not like my perspective, because I was that way like not too long ago. Like,
Right.
you know, do I really want to do iCloud backup? I can just plug my phone in. That seems more safer and whatever. So I, you know, but it's worth considering, like, is this person, you know, of a right mind to make this kind of decision after hearing all these, you know, this feedback from me. And the fact that she didn't trip your spidey sense of paranoid runaway, Jerry, like gave me also reassurance that if
Oh, see,
Jerry doesn't think
now
this is a
you've just blown the cover here.
what?
Hmm?
Oh, no, there's no cover. What do you
No,
mean? Oh,
no,
because you
I
also had this conversation, and
yeah, no.
let's not
So
say
so
anymore. It's fine. There's no personal data.
no,
I
now
just don't
poor
want people to
Sam
think I
knows that I
talk
made a
about them.
referral for you, Joe, and I
Oh,
didn't
that's
send
what
it
you're
to
concerned
him.
There we
about.
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There we
yeah, yeah,
go.
yeah.
Well,
So
I
yeah,
figured as much anyway.
Well, Jerry, so far you've cost me about 2.5 hours of my life. Sam, you know, you're not missing much. If you want to like spend some time offline talking about this too, we can, you know, if you want to just get all the benefit I've gotten out of it so far.
right.
But
And I made the referral to Joe because she was in Joe's area and she was a single residential
exactly.
client.
I didn't even, it didn't even occur to me that
Joe's
Sam
area
might be
meaning my
offended, but
area?
yeah,
Is that what
exactly. Right. Yeah.
explain a little bit
No,
more for me?
it's the east side of Norwalk, Sam, not the like central part of Nor. No.
And yeah, I'm the first one to throw up my hands and say this person's a kook. But I had a really
And you
good
didn't in this case.
no,
Yeah,
I had a
that's
really good
the
feeling from the
yeah.
conversation, and I said this person's super smart.
Yeah.
And after we kind of brainstormed about it, it sounded like it was probably a reasonable request.
Yeah.
But we did say that it would be very beneficial to you to draft up something very simple, a hold harmless letter.
Yeah. That's a
Like
good
this is
point.
going against our best practice. Normally we would and spell it out. We would enable iCloud. Everything gets synced to the cloud. You're
Yep.
requesting that we don't do this.
Yeah.
We can facilitate this for you, but at no point will there, will SIMAC be held harmful for
Right.
any
Oh, yes.
transgression.
Good thing you're not an
Yes.
attorney.
Good thing
Yeah.
for any
Yeah.
problems in the future.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
I
that
mean, the
person
one
that
you,
yeah,
yeah, that one you shared. Thank you. That was helpful. It was
I
almost a
could
little
share that
bit
with you too,
too,
Sam.
yeah. And
Screw
you know
it.
what's
I don't
funny,
want it.
Jerry? I put this stuff in my folder. I have like a contracts folder of like reference material in case I want to incorporate into my contract or whatever. And I actually already had this one, and I don't know if the originator shared it with you know, me at the time or you, and then you shared it to me. But it's one that it's almost a little bit more emphatic about, you know, than I even want to be. It's like, you know, kind of like saying, we've advised you, like, and you know, we're willing to move forward against our better judgment, and like, this is your last chance, or like, it's like that kind of wording, but like in a legal
Surrender,
sense, you know.
Dorothy.
Yeah, so I just thought, well, I'll just rewrite it a little bit, or maybe send her, even just if it's a text message or email, just to like say, you know, yes, let's proceed or something, just to get it in writing that like, we've advised this is not. And again, I feel silly like having such a deep conversation here about like, how can we stay out of the cloud? Like, you know, like, we don't want to stay out of the cloud. We want to be in the cloud. Like, it's just so primary now. But it really, when I thought about it as I'm talking to her, I can't think of another client who's not using iCloud Photos.
Mm-hmm.
I literally can't think of, because I'd remember it, I think, you know. Does that come to mind? I do more residential support, obviously, so this kind of thing comes up, but like, either of you, like,
Not that I can think of.
right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the only situation we've had where we got to bring things into iCloud Photos is that Photos migration that I talked to you guys about a few weeks ago.
Right.
So, but other
Right.
than that, it's pretty standard fare for Photos with my clients.
Yeah, same. You know, and iCloud backup. I mean, it'd be crazy not to turn that on. Like, and again, I mean, in case this wasn't made clear enough, if the person's concern was, I don't like my photos being accessible to Apple, right? Well, nobody's touching them, but okay, like, technically you're right. They're accessible. Fine. You don't like that. I have an answer for that. I don't like my backup being accessible. Okay, I have an answer for that too. Messages, same deal. And I, you know, like to me a better balance between the features and convenience of iCloud photos syncing, iCloud backup. I mean, that's a security thing, having iCloud backup and data integrity. Um, the balance between those things and your concern for privacy is advanced data protection. Like it achieves the goal of Apple can't access their photos even if a rogue employee wants to. Apple cannot be compelled, as far as I can tell, to divulge that to a government or something. Like I'm guessing at what the concerns might be for this person because again, they haven't shared exactly what their like level of,
Yeah.
concern is.
With a court order or a subpoena, is there a backdoor to advanced data protection? And we don't really know the answer.
I'm amazed here. Benjamin Morales says we ban iCloud in most cases. I mean, and this is as Sam was saying. Ben and Stefan are kind of having this conversation in the chat as well about all these nuances, and I'm pretty surprised. Now, I do like a fair amount of residential support, and so this is definitely part of it. It's not it's not a business solution, clearly, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm talking about individuals here who,
Right.
may or may not work for a company, may own
Right.
a company, whatever. But the point is,
Yeah,
like,
for clarity, we all have businesses that don't sign into iCloud, and I support what Benjamin is saying here.
yeah, I do too. There's an implicit trust. He says we trust Apple. I trust Apple more than him. That's true. It seems true. You have to trust somebody at some
You're
point.
Mr. Apple then.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, but for myself or for a residential customer, this is the way to, this is what we would advise. But I deal with a number of businesses where like, no, we don't use iCloud here. This is off.
Yeah.
We block you from signing in.
Right. But then I'm not, then the workflow would be completely different, for a business in a lot of cases.
Right.
Maybe not in some cases, how do you deal with photos in the field, collecting photos for a job site, from a job site to put on your company's server? I mean, there, you can use other apps for that.
That was a rare case where we had to open that up too.
Right.
Yeah, because they were using WhatsApp and we couldn't get the high res photos that we needed in
Ben validated my point here. Residential is different. You are 100% correct. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really comes down to I think always in terms of like a lot of my clients are residential and my business clients, there's overlap and stuff. And so I'm in that world more than maybe a lot of our clients.
You just put that up on the screen because he said you're 100% correct. That's
he liked that. Yeah. That show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, out of context, just about, you mean about everything, I guess, or just,
yeah, probably.
But yeah, so thanks everybody for listening as we hash it out. I think we've all decided, there's no getting out of the cloud. We just have to, like, bend our will to Apple's iCloud, and there's no turning back. So
is that what we learned from all of this?
That's what we've learned. I mean, it's certainly against the stream. It's against the grain to get to not have iCloud, and it's doable. But again, it's subtle, and people have to take more responsibility for their data and solutions and syncing.
I mean, or just get a flip phone and a digital camera, and you're all set.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody. If you're listening live, we have an interview with Andy Espo. So hit the other link. And everyone listening, thank you so much for a great year of Command Control Power. And we will talk to you soon.
That's right.